Well, with load shedding ramping up again to stage 5 today, stage 6 tonight, the ANC says they still want government to try and end load shedding by the end of the year. At the same time, the ANC's NEC Lekgotla resolving that President Cyril Ramaphosa should declare a state of national disaster over our energy crisis, like he did during the pandemic. But the ANC also wants the energy regulator, NERSA, to try and mitigate the impact of the planned 18% power price hike. The energy expert Clyde Mallinson joins us now. Clyde, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
I worry when you and I talk, because the last time when we spoke last year, all of your predictions came true. They were quite difficult predictions, that we would go to stage 6, and that indeed happened. What are you predicting now? We're going to be back in stage 6, or even worse, for quite some time.
Man, I don't like to be a sort of predict bad news. I think stage 6, we can tolerate stage 6 and we'll stick at stage 6. But I have run an exercise where stage 8, 9 and 10 actually appear in the winter months. And so it all actually depends on what the performance of the coal fleet is. So I produced a chart that said if the coal fleet is doing X, we'll have stage Y load shedding. If it's doing a bit less than X, so it's all correlated. And all you need to do is look at the daily outputs from Eskom, and you add up how much is broken, and you can predict load shedding yourself, basically, if you look at my chart. So it's not an open-ended prediction. It's simply saying if the coal fleet's doing X, we can expect load shedding of Y.
Would declaring a state of disaster change the situation very much?
I personally don't believe so. What I've said for many, many years now is that we should treat the crisis as an emergency in order to stave off a disaster. And so what's actually required now is urgency to tackle the problems. And I worry that in a state of disaster, certain things will be rowed roughshod over. So I can almost see ships sailing towards our shore as I think about it and saying, well, if you want to stop that, you're responsible for a stage of load shedding. And as I say, the difficulty was to get people to understand the looming crisis, moving to emergency, moving to disaster. And I would regard stage 6 load shedding on a regular basis as akin to a technical knockout in a boxing match. You're not on the canvas, which is a blackout of the whole country, but you've been TKO'd, if you know what I mean. And they give you a bit of smelling salts, count to 8, well, hopefully not past 8, if they count to 10, you're out. But by the time they've got to 8 and you shake your head, you've got this guy coming at you again looking for the knockout blow. So I'm afraid the country at the moment is in technical knockout.
I suppose one of the key questions is there anything a state of national disaster allows government or Eskom management to do that they can't do now? And the one thing they can do, you mentioned the ships, I'm presuming they'll be setting sail from Turkey, but the one thing that government could do is look at what Eskom management has been complaining about all of the procurement regulations, how difficult it is to get certain things done, how difficult it is sometimes, it seems, to get the energy minister and the finance minister and the public enterprises minister to agree on what to do. It would seem that what this might do is concentrate some of those powers under the presidency. Would that lead to better coordination and maybe getting away with some of the red tape?
It may do. I like to view it as akin to a dictatorship. And you can have a benevolent dictator or a non-benevolent dictator. And I forget what term one would use for that sort of thing. But there are things that can be done that will cut through red tape and speed things up. These other things that might be bulldozed through that will leave us a lasting bad legacy, essentially. And so it's not so much the state of disaster, but what is sought to be done under the state of disaster that concerns me.
Fikile Mbalula, the ANC Secretary General, said today that the ANC would like to recommend that government start subsidizing solar panels. And you yourself have said the one thing that could work, for example, in Joburg, is if people who can take money out of their bond, put as much solar capacity on the roof as possible and try and contribute that to the grid, or just remove the demand from city power just to keep it in Joburg, for argument's sake. Is that a step in the right direction, government subsidizing solar panels?
Well, strangely enough, they don't need to subsidize, but I'm not saying they shouldn't. I think the best way to subsidize them would be with a tax break, essentially. But solar is now cheaper than what you pay anyway, and you normally subsidize things that are more expensive. So subsidies, if there were any subsidies, I would like to see subsidies assisting the poor who can't afford electricity in the first place, and somehow engineering that. And I've got lots of ideas, and we've spoken about it before, how in fact, I'd like to see 10 million South African households get uncapped electricity. But now's not the time to talk about surpluses. So yes, subsidies would be great, but I don't actually believe they're necessary. Urgency is more necessary. And at the moment, if I speak to colleagues who are in the solar installation business, subsidy or no subsidy, you're in a queue. You're waiting 4 months to get your solar panels, so heaven knows what a subsidy would do. It would help if they stopped dropping ridiculous rules of requirements for local content at a time of an emergency. I'm all for building local content over a long period of time with a given pipeline of new projects. But to try and rail a local content program onto the back of an emergency would be akin to saying you're not allowed to get inoculated or vaccinated against COVID until we produce our own COVID. So all those people whose lives have been saved through vaccination would have had to wait while we got rid of our crop-bottom trousers and started manufacturing. You don't start a manufacturing industry on the back of an emergency. You start it on the back of well-thought-out, planned strategy.
The ANC says it wants load shedding to end by the end of the year. So a year from now.
Yeah.
I mean, is that really possible?
There's a difference between a want and a reality. We all want load shedding to end tomorrow. So what you want and what you decree and what is going to happen are very different things. And so, yeah, I also would like load shedding to end by the end of this year. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Clyde Mallinson, the energy expert, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Really do appreciate it.